Hi, my name is Tiffany Baczek, and welcome to my capstone presentation. I'm a student at Georgetown College, and I decided to study in what ways and to what extent does a one-time professional development on the use of visual aids for culturally and linguistically diverse students have on the middle level staff at my school. And I came to this question because my endorsement is ESL, but at the middle level in my school, I work in a K-8. But at the middle level, we only have 6 ESL students, even though we do have a very culturally diverse population. And so I didn't feel like I really had enough students to do something specifically with them. And so I geared my research towards the staff at my school. I'm also an art teacher, and using visuals in the classroom is something that I do every day, and I find it very useful for ESL students as well as other students. So I thought I could put my expertise at using visual aids to good use by providing a professional development session for the middle level staff at my school and to share with them the benefits of using visual aids with their ESL students. Through the research I conducted of peer-reviewed articles, there were 3 very clear themes that emerged through my research. The first theme was that visual aids are effective. The second theme was that technology and visual aids go hand in hand. And the third theme was that in order for visual aids to be effective for students, they have to be explicitly taught. The first theme is that visual aids are effective. There were many articles that I read that talked about all the different types of visual aids that can be used in a classroom, things from anchor charts, maps, tables that are in textbooks, um, different types of technology, videos, and all the different ways that can be used with technology now with smart boards and things like that. And that it's just really effective for ESL students because they're able to attach those mental images with their learning, and it's also a great way for them to be able to show their own learning. The second theme was technology and visual aids. It's very evident that technology engages students and it motivates students because they're just surrounded by it all the time, and that's just how students are learning today. That's kind of the world that they live in. So being able to use technology and to incorporate visual aids in your classroom is really powerful. It gives them also the power to show their learning. It's engaging for them to be able to create something on technology that shows that they have met a standard rather than just always looking at something themselves, but being able to create that with technology. And it's a great way for them to be able to provide those speaking and writing opportunities. And I think that teachers also really appreciate how easy it is to use technology as a visual aid. The last theme was the most interesting for me, really, once I kind of got into the research, was that in order for them to be effective, you have to explicitly teach students how to use a visual aid. And this came up again and again in the research that if you do not point out a graphic or a visual aid that's in a textbook or something else that you've given them or an anchor chart on your wall, then students don't necessarily pay attention to it, even though they're part of this generation that is constantly bombarded with graphics, and maybe that's part of it. They just assume that it's something decorative and not necessarily that something that they can attach meaning to, because when they're given an assessment, it's usually a text-based assessment. So they think that the value is within the text and not necessarily within a graphic. So it's up to the teachers to really point out these graphics and to show students how to read a graph, how to read a map, how do you draw meaning and inferences from these charts. So it's really important for teachers to explicitly teach how to use visual aids. I use the explanatory mixed methods design to gather my research or my data. So the quantitative data that I collected was through 2 different surveys that I used with Google Forms, and the qualitative data that I gathered was through interview questions 2 weeks after the professional development session. I used the Likert scale and the survey that I gave before the professional development, and then I gave another survey after the professional development that also used a Likert scale, 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. I thought this was a really good way to gather the research because I was collecting data based more upon teachers' attitudes and perceptions and opinions on how to use visual aids in the classroom and not necessarily like hard statistics. As far as the data confidentiality and protection of human subjects, all of the information was gathered through Google Forms, so both surveys and the interview were all gathered through Google Form, and all of the participants remained anonymous, so there were no names attached to the data. And as soon as the capstone is complete, I will destroy all of that data. So for data collection and analysis, I created a professional development session in which I invited all of the teachers in the middle level to come to one morning before school, which is, a hard ask, I know, to ask teachers to come to anything extra. So I did have 10 teachers participate, which out of around 35, I thought was a pretty good number, although obviously I wished it had been a little bit more, just so that the data could have a little bit more validity. But overall, I think it went really well. I created the professional development using a Google slideshow, and I just talked to them about why visual aids were important, what I had found through my research that showed that they were effective. I gave them some different resources they can use for how to use visual aids in the classroom, different apps and websites, and some examples of really good anchor charts and things like that. And then I asked them to reflect on the PD on a survey afterwards. So the survey before was kind of more like, how often do you think you use them and do you find them valuable? And at the end of the PD, the survey was more about, did you find this useful? Do you feel like you have some tools that you can go and use in your classroom now? How likely are you to go and use these tools? How likely are you to more explicitly teach how to use visual aids in the classroom and things like that? And then after 2 weeks from the day that I gave the professional development session, I sent out a Google form that had 7 interview questions on it. 3 of them were multiple choice questions, and then the other 4 were open-ended questions. And even though I had 10 people attend the the initial professional development session, I only had 4 people complete the follow-up interview questions, which was disappointing. But even with those 4 people, I was able to come up with some themes around how they felt about how the PD went and how they had changed their use of visual aids in their classroom. This is just a quick look at the pre-survey questions that I gave, and I did create a similar chart and analyze them the same way for the post-survey questions. I just didn't have room in my poster to put all of it, so I just put the pre-survey questions and charts in here so that you could kind of get an idea of how I analyzed my data. So I just found the average of each question. So again, it was on a Likert scale of 1 to 5. And so I just found the average from all of the 10 participants' answers. I grouped some of the questions kind of based on themes to create charts so that I could kind of get a better idea of how they matched and kind of the themes that I found in the pre and post surveys, as well as the interview questions. So the figure 1 is the mode for attitudes about PD and the use of visual aids. And I was able to see, everybody's a 3 for the most part and above. They do really find that that they think that they're effective, that they value them, but they don't feel that they need more professional development. And then in figure 4.2, it was more about how they use visual aids in the classroom. So most of these were 3 or above as well. So they do use mostly technology. The lowest one here is that they don't create their own visual aids, and that is right next to it is that they don't feel that they have enough time to do that, which is why they use probably mostly technology. The post-survey questions revealed also that most teachers feel that they gained a better understanding of why they should use visual aids in the classroom. They felt that they felt that they were powerful and that they felt they gained some strategies that they could use in their room. And the same similar question as the pre-survey was that they felt like they did not need or want any more PD on how to use visual aids with ESL students. Overall, the results showed that teachers do value visual aids as a way to scaffold instruction for ESL students, but they did feel that they did not need any more professional development around using visual aids with ESL students. It was also very apparent that they took away the importance for explicitly teaching visual aids. And I think overall, it really gave value to when visual aids are used in the classroom, students can strengthen and reinforce what they have learned because it allows them to absorb that information in multiple ways, which is helpful for all learners, and especially ESL students. So the results as far as being linked to the literature, I think I was, for the most part, really able to link some of the statistics that I found back to the three themes that I found in my literature. As far as visual aids being effective, that in the pre and post survey, the majority of the teachers did agree that they were an effective scaffolding tool with ESL students. My technology and visual aids theme that I found in my research was also reflected in my study because many teachers preferred to use technology as a way to incorporate visual aids into their lessons. One participant even mentioned that they were excited to use technology as a way for students to create their own visuals as a way of demonstrating their learning, and explicitly teaching use of visual aids was also reflected in the interview questions, especially towards the end, at the end of the 2 weeks. So the majority of the teachers said that they were more likely to explicitly teach visual aids now than they had been before the PD. So as far as implications for future practices at my school, there is no future PD that is necessary. I think that's because as teachers, we're pulled in a million different directions, and we only have 6 ESL students at the middle level. So I don't think that teachers at the middle level necessarily feel that going to more PD that is specifically targeted towards only such a small population of their students is how they really want to spend their time. Even though they did find this particular PD valuable and useful, they don't want any more of it this year. So I do think that one thing for me that, as far as something that I can do, is to bring this to the attention of the ESL teachers at my school. They do go into the classrooms and work with the students and the teachers. So I think just for them being an example of how to explicitly teach how to use visual aids would be really beneficial for the students, and I think it would also be beneficial for the classroom teachers, just kind of as a reminder that that's a really important thing to do. So overall, I think the research shows that visual aids are a powerful tool and facilitate learning for ESL and ELL students, and that teachers find value in the PD, but they prefer not to have any further training. Thank you for sitting through my capstone presentation. I appreciate your attention, and I look forward to getting your feedback.